hope that you are thriving, or you're in a vibration of thriving and dwelling in possibility. Today, I wanted to talk about genetic path cutting. I don't even know if this is something that you've necessarily heard of or not, but you might be a genetic path cutter. I mean, I put it in the title, so if you're clicking on, there might be some kind of a resonance within your DNA that's connecting with this topic of genetic path cutting. And so today I'm going to talk about what genetic path cutting is, like what my perspective of it is, how I've kind of been navigating it in my journey. And then I'm going to give you some signs to let you know whether or not you might be a genetic path cutter. And then also I'm going to leave with some practical tools and jewels and tips to support you on your journey with genetic path cutting, if this is something that is of interest to you. Okay, so first of all, what is a genetic path cutter? A genetic path cutter is somebody who is incarnated in a particular bloodline in order to transform it, okay, in order to disrupt certain traumatic patterns and support with DNA activation, okay? So I'm going to give you an example, right? So let's imagine that you are walking and there's this really, really big field that you're walking through, right? And you need to get to the other side of the field, all right? But there is no path. There's no sidewalk, there's no street, there's no road. You don't have a phone, okay? Let's just say you don't have a phone, you don't have a car, like you can't just Uber your way out of this, right? There is no path in this field that you are on, all right? So a genetic path cutter, what would a genetic path cutter do? Would pave a path. So a lot of times there's that saying around taking the road less traveled. A lot of times there's that cliche saying that's like, you know, you should take the road less traveled, right? But what if there is no road? What if you are creating the road? Okay, that is a sign of a genetic path cutter. And you might be like, well, why would I have to create the road? Why can't somebody else create the road? Why can't I get help or support with creating the road? Well, at this time, there's a lot of folks that are awakening. And as we awaken, our DNA is being activated. The human species has been at a very low consciousness level for many, many years. And at this time, as our DNA begins to activate, as our consciousness begins to awaken, we're starting to understand that another way of thriving, living, being, and dreaming is possible, okay? But we might be incarnated in bloodlines or families or lineages where they were doing one particular thing the whole time, you know? That's maybe why there is no road in this field analogy. You know, imagine that you're in this field, there's tons of weeds, there's just like, there seems to be no foreseeable path to get to the other side, but you need to get to the other side because otherwise you're just going to be hanging out in some weeds, right? And if you pave your way and get to another destination, then you might possibly increase your life chances. You might find other opportunities of joy and thriving. You might find an ocean. You might be able to get yourself to a lake, a river, a stream, etc., etc. This is the analogy of a genetic path cutter. Somebody who creates out a way out of seemingly no way, okay? So I'm gonna get more into the details of genetic path cutting, but just know that a lot of times it can feel like you are going against the grain. You're going against a certain script that has been provided to not only you, but to your bloodline. And a lot of times we think, oh, well, you know, we can be independent. We can just break away from our families and we can go and do our own thing. But the thing about it is that no matter how far away you go away from your family, like you might be not on speaking terms with your family currently. You might feel ostracized by your family. But the thing is that their blood still runs through your veins. You still possess their DNA signature. And so what you'll find is without doing the genetic path cutting, you're going to find that you might end up in the same trauma loops over and over again, right? No matter how far away you move, you might go to like the fanciest school, you might get the best job, et cetera, because of your DNA encoding. Without doing the genetic path cutting, you might find that certain cycles of trauma continue to get passed down through the bloodline, okay? So let's talk about some of the ways that you might know that you are a possible genetic path cutter. Let's talk about it. Okay, so you might be a genetic path cutter if you've always felt different or outcasted by your family. You know, they call it a lot of things. They call it like the black sheep or that sort of thing. You might have felt like you've played the role of like sacrificial lamb in your family sometimes. Like you may have felt as though you were just kind of ostracized for being you, you know, and you were born into the family, but you never quite felt fully accepted, or you felt like you always had to explain yourself, that kind of thing, right? Maybe you got picked on in your family, that sort of thing, okay? That might be a sign that you are a genetic path cutter. Now, another sign that you could be a genetic path cutter is that you might be attracted to ancestral healing. Hold on, let me just make sure that I am catching up with the, thanks to everyone who is joining. Okay, Coquette Honey says, I'm so happy I got to your live. Been wondering so hard about the solar sun. Oh yes, that has a lot to do with genetic path cutting. The great central sun. The sun behind the sun. Y'all been feeling those rays. You know how they're talking about the aurora right now? They're talking about how the aurora borealis is being seen in places that it's not normally seen. What's up with that? What's going on with that? We got these solar flashes happening. That has a lot to do with the genetic path cutting. Straight up, that's why we're genetic path cutting, because the great central sun is something that the earth used to orbit around a very, very long time ago. Okay, long time ago. And we were in a much more elevated state of consciousness around this time. But, you know, things happened and we fell out of orbit with the great central sun. So the sun that currently we get our sunshine and vitamin D from, that is not the great central sun. Actually, the sun fell out of orbit with the earth. So a lot of like the solar system is in a fallen state at this time. But right now we're starting to see some really interesting things happening with the planets aligning in certain ways. And we're getting more of these solar flares. The aurora is showing up. The aurora is very much connected to the great central sun, okay? Now, with that being said, a lot of stuff is going to change. We've been used to our solar system and the solar sun being a very particular way for a very long time. Well, what happens when the earth starts getting blasted with the rays of the great central sun? Well, what happens is that there's a magnetic force that is going to come on to the planet. And we're seeing this happen we're going to start seeing this happen with greater intensity. And the magnetism is not going to resonate with a lot of the electrical, mechanical ways that we have been living in our society. Okay, so what that means is that for folks who are interested in carrying on their bloodline into this new path that Earth is taking, Earth is going, y'all. Earth, she's doing her thing, okay? So she gonna go with us or without us, you know? She's like, look, catch this right if you want, you know, align with me if you want. If not, that's cool too, you know? No shade, no shame, right? So genetic path cutters are the ones that are like, you know what? I think I want to try out this new Earth thing. You know, I think I want to engage in a radical shift of perception. I think I want to engage in a radical shift in a way of living, being, thinking, and dreaming. Yeah, it's kind of hard and I feel alone in it, but I want to do it. And it's because there's a calling. It's encoded in your DNA to do this. You're here to do this, okay? So yes, it's hard. I gave the analogy earlier for folks who are just coming in of a genetic path cutter being somebody who's like walking amongst a field and sees this huge field that's overrun with weeds and all this BS, and you got to get through it, and there's no way to carve your way through it, but you got to find a way, okay? And it sounds kind of hard and laborious, and ain't nobody coming to help you. Nobody's bringing up a volunteer sign-up sheet to support you with this, at least not yet. Okay, because what do we know about people who are innovators and trendsetters? A lot of times they're alone. A lot of times they're outcasted. A lot of times they're ostracized. A lot of times people are laughing at them. A lot of times people are thinking they're crazy, right? Why would this be any different? Okay. The human species, when we get together, we get into this weird groupthink mentality. Groupthink mentality is not going to get us aligning with where Earth is going and the rays of the great central sun. Okay. We got to take another path. And that is what genetic path cutters are here to do. Hold on. Let me catch up with the comments. Give me a second. Okay. So Lovejoy says, I've been channeling. Oh, and thanks for sharing the live. Yeah. If y'all think some people would benefit, yeah, share it, please. I've been channeling this understanding and feeling a bit crazy and alone. Yeah. At that time, like if you're starting to feel crazy, just fall all the way back. That means that you are getting projected upon. People are projecting their judgments and their thoughts, and that just means you just need to detach more, like that's the power in being alone. Okay. It might feel weird at first, but just, get used to declining the invitation, get used to doing your own thing and being okay with respectfully declining. Some of y'all may be in really pushy situations where people are blowing up your phone. So I don't know. Sometimes I've said it before and I'll say it again. Sometimes you might need to switch your phone number up. Was one of the best things I did when I needed to pull back, because I was so enmeshed in groupthink and I was so enmeshed in all of these social circles, and I was making this shift, and I would be sharing the processes I'd be going through, and I would be feeling like weird, and I realized it was because of the projections. So if you're feeling that way, just take a full step back and then pour into yourself, and get comfortable with your own vibration. And then eventually, it's going to take some time of being alone. That's a part of this process of actually being a genetic path cutter. And I'm going to talk a little bit more about that. Being alone is part of that process. But eventually you're going to start aligning with your tribe. And those are the people who are choosing to align with this new way of living, being, and dreaming. Okay. But first, you've got to go through a really extensive process of deprogramming. And a big thing that you're deprogramming is codependency, right? This feeling like you are only valuable or worthy if, X amount of people are in your life, or if you're being of service to this person or that person. A lot of that is programming that we're going to need to unlearn as we create this new way. Okay. So, let's see. But it's nice to hear your grounded voice speaking what I know to be true. A lot of alone time. That's going to make you grounded. What's going to make you ungrounded is being around a lot of people who are projecting all their stuff onto you and all that sort of stuff. But, you get comfortable in your own essence, and then you start enjoying your company. Like, I used to be very codependent. I never had any alone time ever. And, and at first it was weird. And then, you start realizing like, wow, I really enjoy my own company. This is kind of cool, Let's see what else. Hold on. Okay, Goddess says, definitely me and my birth family is falling away faster and faster. Yes. So I want to talk about the stages. There's going to be a stage in your genetic path cutting where you just need to fall back with all of your family, right? It's going to it's too much. There's too much enmeshment. And here's the thing. A lot of times, so I mentioned earlier that if you're a genetic path cutter, you're going to feel different or outcasted by your family. And you're going to be attracted to ancestral healing. So I'm going to talk about that, attraction to ancestral healing. So when you first start on this, with this attraction to ancestral healing, you might want to bring this to your family. Like I remember back in the day, I was like, I want to do a family healing circle with my family, or I want to organize a get together so we can just say kumbaya and all that stuff. Like I thought that that's what my role was. Like I knew I was here to help heal my lineage, but I was kind of like trying to bring it to my family, and nobody was having that in my family. And you'll find that a lot of times you're a genetic path cutter and you know that you're here to do something with with relation to your family and your DNA, but you don't feel like a lot of times respected by your family, and then your family really does not care. Like they want to just do their own thing and do things how it's been done. And so you're going to find that ancestral healing is not an outside process, it's actually an inner process, you know? So, that also means like respectfully taking your space, you know? And so there might be those times where you just literally have to go no contact with some people, okay? And what you're gonna find is that some family members may never come around, and you'll maybe never be able to cultivate a relationship with them because your relationship was very karmic. It was built upon very karmic, like sacrifice programs and stuff like that. And I'll talk about that more later. But you'll also find that some family members are going to gravitate to you naturally. They're going to be also interested in ancestral healing and genetic path cutting, and you'll formulate a closer relationship with them. You know, one of my closest family members is on her own genetic path cutting and healing journey, you know, and she's one of the only family members I really talk to, you know, to be quite honest, a lot of times. But you know, it doesn't mean you have to X out your whole family, but you will need to figure out who's resonating with you. And then you'll also find out who may be caught up in the most karmic circumstances. And with love, you might just need to kind of step aside, you know? Love Joy says, my birth family too. Coquette Honey says, exactly, group mentality isn't going to help. Yep, we got to get look, we're not following the herd with this. Remember how when COVID hit and everybody started going, what did the herd do? They went to go buy toilet paper. Like that's that's the kind of decisions you might make following the herd these days, you know? Like you don't want to do what everybody else is doing these days, because when, that's that electrical mentality, that programmed mentality just running the show, okay? And that really shows us, I mean, it seems kind of silly, but it's like, okay, that shows us the level of programming that we might need to unravel, okay? So Coquette Honey says, some people I think aren't comfortable being open-minded. Yes, thank you, Mrs. Jones. Alone is not hard for folks like us. No, it's actually very restorative. It's very, very restorative. Okay, Callie Vale says she's going through that now. Love Joy says they're going through that process now. Yes. My ex, so Gab says my ex, oh wait, okay, yeah, celibacy. Oh, that's a big one. Yep. Congrats on that. Okay, and then Coquette Honey says, I need to heal things, but no idea what our DNA needs healing of. So we're gonna get to that. Gab says, my ex told me they're poly, never disclosed this when we were together in monogamy. Ooh, that's gonna be a conversation. I'm sending good vibes to you that you're, this is an opportunity. Just consider this an opportunity. A lot of times crises are opportunities, And then Mana says, this whole process aged me a lot faster, I feel, but I am energetically working on renewing cells. Yes, regeneration. So the aging, a lot of times I have been finding, and I've mentioned this, I'm going to say this website. If you are on this genetic path cutting journey, write down this website or type it into your phone or what have you. It's called Aligning with Earth. Lots of materials on this DNA activation process. So somebody mentioned earlier that they're like, I know my DNA needs a lot of healing, but I don't know what it needs healing of, and I don't know where to start. So Aligning with Earth is a good website, but I'm also going to give you another resource just to get you started immediately. And this goes into the third way that you're a genetic path cutter. So you know that you're a genetic path cutter if you are from a family with a lot of ACEs, also known as adverse childhood experiences. So I'm not sure if y'all have heard of this before, but I'm just gonna give a quick breakdown. So there's a doctor out of San Francisco by the name of Nadine Burke Harris, who basically was one of the first medical practitioners to really find like health causes as it relates to trauma. She started connecting health to trauma, more than just like your physical health and stuff. She started looking at things like your economics. She started looking at things like racism. She started looking at things like single parent households and all those kinds of things. And she started tracing how they impacted health outcomes, whether or not you grew up in a neighborhood that was more low income or that had a lot of violence, et cetera, et cetera. And so she created something called the ACEs study to do this. And so basically, if your family had 5 or more ACEs, that means that you were from a very highly traumatized family. So I'll just list some of the ACEs off top. That could be low income, that could be experiencing racism, and that could be experiencing external racism or internal racism. That could be experiencing any kind of gang violence if any members of your family were on drugs or experienced alcoholism, if there were any forms of abuse in your family, if you were raised in a single parent household. You get the drift though with what an ACE is, what an adverse childhood experience is. So what you could start doing is just writing it down on a piece of paper. Okay, what were the main things that my family was impacted by, not just in this timeline, but your past generations too, because you'll find for example, alcoholism or drug abuse, a lot of times that's a generational thing, That's because there's programming within our DNA, which will cause certain people to engage in substance abuse, and that doesn't mean that you will definitely do it. It's not to say oh, my mom was an alcoholic, so I'm definitely going to be an alcoholic, but it's something that you're more predisposed to in your DNA, right? And so we could take it from a third dimensional approach, and we could think about this from okay, I need to go to counseling, and that's something I did for a while. In another life, I taught, I was an early childhood professor. Okay, so I am somebody who has experienced a lot of adverse childhood experiences. I've definitely have come from a family that has more than 5 ACEs. Okay, and so I knew from a very early age that I was here to disrupt patterns. But when I was being raised in the false matrix and going to college and all that kind of stuff, I went at it from a very theoretical standpoint. I said, okay, I'm going to study this. I'm going to, work in early childhood education. I'm going to work in youth programs. I'm going to go to counseling. I'm going to, read all the self-help books and all that kind of stuff. But, truth be told, I found myself even, doing all the things that the false matrix said that I should do to be the responsible member of society. I found certain ACEs showing up in my bloodline again, and I was well, why? I went to college, I did all the things the false matrix told me to do, but that's not enough. That's because we're not getting to the DNA of things, okay? And so how do we get to the DNA of things? Well, number one, it requires us shifting into a wellness-based mindset. The current society that we live in wants us to focus on productivity, wants us to focus on climbing ladders, any ladders, the corporate ladder, climbing to the top of whatever that is. It's a lot of the world that we lived in is based within these boxes and pyramids and all that kind of stuff. And they want us to climb these angular ways, Thing about it though, I mentioned the great central sun earlier. The magnetic force of the great central sun is going to align us back to the spiral. It's made out of more rounded edges. And when we think about unity consciousness and, the ways in which indigenous communities grew together and thrived together before a lot of the isms came, a lot of colonialism, capitalism, et cetera, we were more in alignment with the magnetism of the great central sun. So a civilization that a lot of times our society won't necessarily give credit to is Lemuria. This ancient civilization of Lemuria. You can find vestiges of Lemuria today in Polynesian ancestry, so the Hawaiians and a lot of the folks off in the Pacific islands, and then also the Aboriginals too. They were, a lot of those cultures were able to kind of keep certain unity-based dynamics, and a lot of times these cultures have been ostracized and pushed aside in our huge grind culture society where it's about making money, getting ahead and all that stuff. But, as the magnetism of the great central sun continues to be exposed within the earthly plane, these sorts of values are going to be a lot more highly sought after. The unity-based values. We're going to be learning from these tribes again. And we're going to be, the folks who are going to thrive are going to go back to these ways. So that means like becoming more in alignment with the land, having more of a collectivist mindset, farming, living off of the land, getting consent from the land, right? Not just kind of like using and abusing the land, all right? These are going to be the folks who are going to thrive. Now, what about us? What about us who we were raised in this hyper capitalistic society? I talk a lot about something called grind culture. And I have a book out called The Grind Culture Detox. And I know I owe some folks a live. Some people have been asking me to talk more about that. So I'll get to that. But, you know, we've been caught up in grind culture. We've been programmed to think that we needed to have certain accolades in order to get ahead. We were programmed to really prioritize the opposite of what's going to align us with the shift of the new earth. This is why the deprogramming process is so important. This is why we got to spend alone time, right? We got to do this ourselves. And so if you are a genetic path cutter, you're here to heal your bloodline, but you do it through yourself. You do it through you. You do it through deprogramming certain patterning, certain thought forms, certain etheric implants. I talk a lot about etheric implants and etheric weaponry. You can check out my YouTube channel, the Goddess Keys, and I also have some like meditations and subliminals to support you guys on your journey. So definitely check that out. But there's a lot of literal machinery on the etheric plane that we're going to need to clear out of our system. We're going to have to clear out a lot of karma. Karma is not a bad thing. Everybody has karma on this planet. Okay, some more than others, sure. And some people on this planet have thrived, or beings on this planet have thrived by basically deferring karma onto large populations of people. And, you know, that's coming to an end as well. And, you know, people are going to start learning how to energetically send that back and only take responsibility for the karma that is theirs to take responsibility for. But that's a whole other conversation. Healing karma is a very internal process. It's getting to the root cause of the trauma. And once you get to the root cause of the trauma and you bear witness, some folks call it compassionate witnessing, going back into the timelines to the time when the trauma occurred and being a compassionate witness, and then finding out where that trauma is held within your biology. A lot of times that's going to be held within your physical. But any disease always starts with manifesting in the spiritual. So anytime, you know, anybody gets a disease, it has already manifested like almost 7 years, sometimes like up to 7 years prior on the spiritual plane, okay, in your etheric body, okay. It always hits the non-physical before it gets to the physical. The physical is the last resort. Okay, so a lot of times, you know, you might have, for example, your family might have a history of heart disease. There's some kind of emotional brokenheartedness that needs to be healed and dismantled within the family lineage. And if heart disease is showing up in the physical plane, then it's definitely showing up in your etheric body, or what is known as your subtle bodies. Well, what do we do with that? We live in a society where it's only what we can see, taste, touch, feel, and hear. And that's what we were taught. Like, that's what we went to school. That's what our schools tell us. Our schools ain't going to tell us about no etheric body or subtle body. And if you see your etheric body or feel your subtle body, some psychiatrists might say you're crazy and that you need to go on medication. What do we do with that? Right? So those are some of the nuances to being a genetic path cutter. You're going to be in a society that tells you certain things that you're feeling and seeing and going through are not real. That's a figment of your imagination. This was a huge gaslighting tactic that has been used to keep us programmed within the false matrix. Genetic path cutters move past that. And what's interesting is that there's a lot of folks in the psychology realm that are genetic path cutters. A lot of folks come to me who are psychologists or they're social workers, and time again, I see it. And I see myself in them. Like they're in school, they're doing all the things, you know, they're getting their degrees and their licensures and all that stuff. But they're like, yeah, but I also want to learn about somatic healing. Yeah, but I also want to learn about holistic healing, you know? And depending upon which state you're getting licensed in, if you live in the US, like some states are more open-minded and they'll allow you to do more holistic healing. Some are not, but a lot of folks are in this where they're like, I am a genetic path cutter. I know that there's more to life than what I can see, taste, touch, feel, hear, and smell. However, I'm also still trying to get this degree and this credential. So I've seen a lot of folks in, therapy, or who are therapists, they've taken the middle path where, they're getting the degree, but they're also learning about the somatic healing. So I would say that, that's one thing to do if you feel like you're a genetic path cutter. How can you integrate your healing practice into your work? Because we do live in a severely capitalistic society right now. We still have to a lot of us have to depend upon jobs and work in order to sustain ourselves. So a good middle path is to find a way to infuse healing and wellness into your work life, because we're forced to work so much in our society. Okay. So for example, I've talked to a lot of professors, I work with folks on the college level a lot of times, and they might be a professor in, for example, early childhood development, but then they also want to be a yoga teacher. They're getting their yoga teacher training, right? And so then, that's kind of how it started with me. I was really stressed out at work, and I started having to integrate more wellness practices before I went to work. And then I found ways to integrate it into my work. So whatever that is, whatever you're doing, you might be a store manager somewhere. Can you integrate a wellness day? Can you advocate for a wellness day? You might be a teacher. Can you teach meditation during your day? After school program like this. So start with that middle path of integrating wellness as a lifestyle, and whoever you're working with, take them along with you. But you do it for you, but other people will benefit. All right, hold on. Let me catch up with these comments. Okay. Aligning with Earth. Got it. Yes. Aligning with Earth. The spiral. Yes, I love Lemuria too. Says the spiral. Where is the great central sun? Where is Lemuria? What about the Anunnaki? All great questions. Okay. So they say that, so what I'm going to tell you is going to go against everything that was taught in our geography class. Okay. So whatever. But I just wanted to put that out there as a disclaimer. They say the great central sun is coming from underneath the earth. So how a lot of times in spirituality, they talk about going up in consciousness, going up in dimensions, looking towards the sky, right? For God and all that sort of stuff. In the old way, that's how they did things, but it's actually, you go down, you look down, and so that changes how the earth might be underneath. So a lot of times we were taught that underneath the earth, there's lava and magma, and it's just really hot underneath the earth. Well, what if that's a part of the earth? What if that's not the whole thing? There's also this inner earth theory that, underneath the earth, you go down far enough, there's another civilization there that is living in a higher dimension. There's another theory that says that there are crystal caverns in the inner earth, and there are rivers and all the whole ecosystem. Okay. The reason why, according to the inner earth theory, the reason why these beings are able to live in an ascended state underneath the earth is because they're so close to the great central sun. So if the rise in consciousness is actually coming from underneath us, the more, the closer you are to that, the further down you are, the more you're getting that magnetism, the more you're able to live a magnetic life, a more abundance mindset, that kind of thing. You've heard that, a lot of these manifestation teachers are talking about increasing your magnetism. So just imagine if you live close to a magnetic sun, your magnetism is just going to automatically increase, and the goal is that as we raise in consciousness, some of the stuff that we're worrying ourselves about, like housing and food and working 40 hours a week, is not necessarily as much of a thing, because we're living a more magnetic lifestyle, and things are just provided for us because our consciousness allows it to be so. But in order for that to occur, we got to go through a huge cleansing and deprogramming process. So I'm going to repeat some of the stuff I said around genetic path cutting. How do you know you're a genetic path cutter? You've always felt a little different or outcasted by your family. You are attracted to ancestral healing. You are from a family with a lot of ACEs, or also known as adverse childhood experiences. You prioritize wellness daily, or you want to live a life where you're prioritizing wellness daily. And the last thing I'll say is you believe that another way is possible. You believe that the way that you have been taught that life is or is supposed to be is not quite so. You have this urge and stirring in your soul that knows that there can be more joy, that there doesn't have to be as much trauma in the world and in our lives, you know? So those are some of the ways that you might know that, those are some of the ways that you might know that you are a genetic path cutter. And Lemuria is connected to like the Polynesian islands, like Hawaii, that sort of thing. Also, they say Australia was a part of Lemuria at one point. They also say certain parts of Asia were a part of Lemuria. It used to be a big continent, but a huge nuclear disaster happened between two civilizations, one being Atlantis, the other being Lemuria. I just did a whole download on it on my YouTube channel if you want to check that out. The Anunnaki, that's a whole other conversation, very important to our ascension, and we need to deprogram a lot of the Anunnaki programming in order to embrace the magnetism of the great central sun. The Anunnaki are very electrical in their thinking. You know how like there's like pyramids and stuff, like in a lot of these ancient civilizations, like those are kind of the vestiges of the Anunnaki, also the Atlanteans. And the Atlanteans are, a lot of them, the rulers of Atlantis, they are of the lineage of the Anunnaki. And, you know, we want to think of the pyramids as being this like super spiritual thing, but, you know, they were actually energy harvesting machines. They were used to energy harvest off of people and off of the planet. But that's another conversation. So we're moving, whatever you see the angles, like we're moving out of angular thinking. We're moving into the spiral, the circle. So just start looking at things from shapes. Look at things from the shape of things, you know, even logos. The logos of different organizations, you're going to start looking at those differently as you start re-examining angles. Okay, let's see. All right, capitalism is in the late stage. It's very hard. Everything is a business, so there is no connection. Yeah, but that is just gonna change. It's just gonna naturally change. It's just, you know, things are different events are just gonna happen to where that just has to change. So Goddess says, "What's your take on generational wealth?" So you got to look at the angles. So I did something on TikTok about this, about reimagining money and scarcity. And we have to think about everything from geometry, first and foremost. You know, we want to say that everybody's created equal. You know, we were taught, like, even though we have these experiences related to slavery and discrimination, you know, but I never talk about this stuff from a human standpoint or just a human standpoint. I like to think of it larger than that. Or just like a race standpoint, you know. I like to think about this as bloodlines and bloodlines that go beyond race, but like also like what planet are folks seeded from? So the Anunnaki, you know, what I think about generational wealth, it goes back to the Anunnaki. The people who hold generational wealth currently are of Anunnaki bloodline. They are running certain electrical geometry within our field. Our society has been thriving off of electricity. It's going to get to a point where it stops being able to do that as the magnetism of the great central sun gets ushered more and more into the planet. However, the pyramids and box type structures thrive in an electrical setting. Okay, the magnetism thrives more in the spiral and more in the circle. And so we can see how, even though indigenous cultures have kept certain knowledge and practices related to unity consciousness, we can see how they've been treated on this planet. A lot of their energy has been harvested off of, and we can see it from a third dimensional standpoint based upon their land being taken. You know, so how a lot of the indigenous cultures, they always got their land taken. They're always getting put on some reservation. Okay, as above, so below. So if that's happening in a third dimensional standpoint, what's happening energetically? And how is this able to happen? Is it just because indigenous cultures are just dumb? Like they can't keep their land? Like, are they just too weak? Let's like start really thinking about it. But if we start thinking about geometry, there are certain beings, people who are the lineage of the Anunnaki, who have certain sacred geometry where they have certain like pyramids running within their fields, and they're at the top of that pyramid, you know, and like literally their geometry is just kind of stripping people of energy, resources, knowledge, information. And, you know, this is where we get into a lot of the things we can't see, taste, touch, or feel, but that are happening. And this is why it's very important for folks who are, you know, moving into more of a magnetic way of living is to reclaim all of your power. And that means you got to understand the dynamics, the energetic dynamics are what's happening with certain folks, right? And so then you're able to reclaim your power because, you know, we have been thriving or not thriving, but we have been living within this codependent society. And a lot of times people are just, you know, certain beings of Anunnaki lineage, you know, they just always end up, you know, at the top of the corporation. They end up the movie star, they end up, et cetera, et cetera. It's not by coincidence. It's not just because they're lucky or they just worked harder than everyone else. How many people know of hardworking people who are barely making ends meet? What's the deal? You know, it goes more than, it's not just about race, you know, it's not, people of Anunnaki bloodline can be of they could look any sort of way, you know, and then there's also people who make deals, right? And so they realize like, okay, well, this is the way life is. If I want to make it to the top, then I'm gonna be like them, you know, and then they kind of adapt certain geometry within their fields. And that's the way things have been working for a really long time. But to your point or your question around generational wealth, the way we reclaim generational wealth is we collapse the pyramids, and we do that on like an actual, like you're going to start seeing that more and more in the news. People like workers' rights, you're already kind of seeing that kind of stuff. You're seeing different countries taking their power back from monarchies, taking the stuff that's been taken from their land and put in museums. You're starting to see that happen more. But as above, so below. That also means deconstructing the pyramids within your field, the boxes. There might be certain pyramids running in your field right now, which says you're always going to be at the bottom of it because of your bloodline and your lineage. Well, you got to deconstruct that, and you got to figure out, well, where did that come from? It's held by a thought form. It's held by a belief that says that you're not enough or that you're not valuable because some trauma was stored in your DNA. And a lot of this programming is held together by trauma. That's why there's a lot of beings on this planet that don't want us to heal, that don't want us to prioritize wellness. Okay, because then we start doing that and then we're like, hey, something's up, something's not right, you know? So this is a very internal process. And that leads me to some of okay, you're like, wow, Heather, you're giving me a lot of information here. What am I supposed to do with this? So I'm going to try to give y'all some real practical ways to work on this deprogramming process, okay? So you want to first educate yourself on DNA and how trauma is stored, okay? And so you can find this in the library. You know, you can start at the library. A really good book is called The Body Keeps Score. And a lot of people are reading it and stuff, and it's basically talks about it from a very like medical standpoint and psychological standpoint, how trauma is stored in the DNA and how that trauma that DNA gives instruction sets for how things are going to go in your life. Okay. So that's one way, like learn about DNA and trauma and what are the connections. They call it epigenetics. So start learning about epigenetics and how trauma is stored in the DNA. The next thing that you want to do is you want to start learning about your etheric body. Okay, I know you can't see your etheric body, but it's there. Some people do this through Reiki, you know, that's a start, but you know, that will get you to a certain point. But you know, your etheric body is, you know, we have a lot of bodies. We have a lot of subtle bodies. We have our physical body, mental body, emotional body, etheric body, dreamtime body, creative body. And a lot of times we're getting stripped from the bodies we can't see. And then that manifests into the physical. So a lot of that is reclaiming a lot of the stuff in the non-physical first, and it eventually manifests in the physical, but it takes time. It's a journey. But that means starting to clear yourself of etheric implants. I have a Patreon that has different meditations that you can do. There's also some free meditations on my YouTube at The Goddess Keys. So just check out the links in my bio and you can get on that. You also are as a genetic path cutter, you're going to need to start dismantling the programming of curses, hexes, and spells. Yeah, those are real. But here's what they don't tell you about curses, hexes, and spells. They're held together by a certain thought form that was caused in trauma, and they're held together. Those thought forms are also held together by etheric implants and machinery, okay? And here's the other thing. It's these curses, hexes, and spells are carried through our DNA, and they're carried through certain bloodlines. So this is where stuff starts getting really deep. You might be encountering somebody and your ancestry don't like each other. Your ancestry, did something to their ancestry a long time ago. The instruction sets in your DNA hexes that person, or that person hexes you or puts a spell on you. It's a very mechanical process. A lot of times we get really in our feelings about curses, hexes, and spells. Oh, they cursed me. I know they put, and sometimes we can feel it. Like we're like, something's not right about that person. I don't know. I need to stay away from them. But a lot of times they're doing it in the unconscious. They don't even know they're doing it. Sometimes they do, but most times they don't. It's just an electrical sort of thing. And it's held together by certain trauma patterns. So you got to get out the trauma and to dismantle those curses, hexes, and spells from impacting you. They don't have to impact you, but you got to do a huge process of deprogramming to make sure that it doesn't. And get at those thought forms, okay? And you're like, well, how do you do that? You got to learn how to access your Akashic records, and this is something that goes beyond just getting an Akashic records reading. You got to go beyond that. You got to learn how to get in your own Akashic records. And there's a lot of stuff that you're dismantling if you are a genetic path cutter, if you are healing intergenerational trauma. Let me stop there and catch up on these messages, y'all. Okay, hold on. All right, yes, we're talking about Lemuria. Yeah, you said Coquette Honey says, I'm drawn to Eastern Europe, Western Asia, and Northern Africa. That's where some of your genetic path cutting stuff is taking place. If you're drawn to certain places, that's because you had ancestry there at one point. There's some information sometimes that you need to get from those lands. And then sometimes there's some trauma that needs to be healed. There's a reason why you're attracted to certain places. You can also check out your astrology chart. There's something called astrocartography. You can start learning how to read your astrocartography, and you'll see where certain ley lines are on your chart, and a lot of times it's connected to these places that you're already naturally drawn to. Yes, Lemuria. There's a lot of Atlantean and Lemurian curses, actually, and hexes that are still playing out in the collective unconscious until we heal that. So check out my video on YouTube. I did a whole download on that. But a lot of times, we start healing some of the karma from these ancient civilizations that our current society says doesn't exist. Then we can start getting at some of these old programs and, transmuting them and having more joy and stuff. Okay, let's see. Yeah, I don't get a good feeling when I think of Anunnaki. Yeah, and also they're also a part of us. A lot of that is in our DNA. Some of them, they manipulated our DNA. A lot of the reasons why we have a lot of this more mechanical way. They wanted to keep a lot of people docile so they could stay in power. So they pared down the DNA, and we're claiming all of that back. We can activate that, but we have to know what's been taken from us to do that. Let's see. So which bloodlines are stuck in poverty? So they call them the Red Nations ancestors a lot of times. And it's not that they're stuck in poverty, because but yeah, the Red Nations people. Also there's also this lineage called the Grandmasters. If you have Grandmaster lineage, you've just been around for a really long time and have had really extreme traumas that started a lot longer ago that you need to transmute and stuff. Let's see. Yes, good. Claim your God consciousness. Let's see. When I was little, I always used to say, no, I was in Paris and y'all brought me here. So I don't know. Yeah, look at the ley lines. I've been doing most of the trauma work by myself. Could it be that receiving help has been blocked? That's a good question. I think it's important to get clear with yourself, because once you start learning about the ins and outs of how this whole like false matrix thing has worked, you won't want to just work with anybody. You want to learn how to do this stuff yourself. You'll find that you'll have to undo some things, like, if you're giving certain readers access to your Akashic records and all that kind of stuff. And, you have to know where their spirit is. Where's their lineage? What's their geometry? You start looking at things, and this isn't to be paranoid at all. This is just why, I like to teach people, go into your own Akashic records. It's like go into your own bank account. You wouldn't just never look at your bank account, right? And just never look at it. You'd want to check it time to time. It's the same concept, So I would say it's probably a good protection for you to do it a little bit alone, but also know that there's resources out there. So that Aligning with Earth website is really good. Check out my YouTube channel if you want to go deeper, and if you're ready to get into the past lives, parallel lives, ancestral healing. I have meditations, both just for sale, if you want to do one meditation, or if you want to get the whole library for Patreon, then you can do that. But I don't think it's a bad thing to do this alone. You'll know when it's time to be with other people. So Diane Prince 381 says, I don't do readers. I don't trust it. A lot of psychic people are always reaching out to me. No. Yeah, there we go. And you just got to really use discernment, and you don't want to you just want to not be in situations where you're giving your power to somebody, where you're tell me what to do. Tell me what my gifts are, don't we want to move past that. So when I do readings with people, I always am empowering them to do it themselves. Okay. So for example, I have a genetic path cutting tier on my Patreon that I just launched, right? And so what this is outside of all the meditations and stuff that I'm doing with folks, or that, you're doing guided by yourself. I've created the meditations, but you're doing it on your own free time. There's also a reading that you get once a month. It's called the genetic path cutting reading. And basically it just shows on an etheric plane, physical plane, what are some of the points that you might want to focus on with your DNA. So I'm going to show y'all, and y'all might laugh. I used to have a whole bunch of tarot cards and a whole bunch of oracle cards. I have found that those get in the way, and they don't get at the direct answers that I'm seeking. So I got 200 plus index cards that I've just channeled through studying the DNA activation through the Aligning with Earth website, looking at things from epigenetic level, etheric level, physical level, bloodline level, countries level, all that kind of stuff, right? And so I'll do a reading for somebody, and I'll do a pre-recorded okay, so, this is what source is coming through and saying, to focus on. But I'll also give people the template of here's what the 200 cards say, and here's how I'm interpreting them. You might interpret them differently, because ideally, you can get one reading sometimes, but sometimes you're going to need more than one reading. So I'll give you an example. I actually pulled some cards before this live, I asked, I connected with my I am presence. And that's another thing, is make sure you're not calling on false gods to do this. And what are false gods? There's just a lot of non-physical entities and energies that just want to energy harvest off of humans and want us to stay in a fallen state and out of our power, because they form this weird vampiric relationship with us. Okay. I go into it more, but just, focus on calling in your I am presence, your soul, earth, connect with earth, and connect with your elevated ancestors, really bring in that team. Those are the beings that are here to help you ascend. Your elevated ancestors want you to ascend and reclaim your power. Earth wants you to ascend and reclaim your power, because you're more likely to be an ally in this ascension journey. Your I am presence, that's that connection to source that a lot of us have been cut off from a lot of our program, so just call in those protections. But I would actually, shy away from calling on the archangels and goddess this and goddess that. I don't know. That's just my 2 cents. Okay. And a lot of these, tarot cards, if you look at the oracle cards, they also, if you look at the geometry of them, they have like a lot of fallen geometry that we're not ascending into. So I just do words, and I'm a very artistic person, but I find that, just getting to the words, getting past the fluff, it supports. So I pulled a few cards, and here's some of the things that, my connection to my I am presence says, to support folks on your journey. I said, okay, what can I share with people to support them on their genetic path cutting journey? So the first card that was pulled was Creator. And the way I interpret this is connect to your creator consciousness. There have been a lot of spells and curses and hexes on our creativity, on our creations, on our ability to create. And that's to keep us in a disempowered state a lot of times, right? So there's this weird energy harvesting dynamic, which I'll do more content on at a later date around like stolen dreams. Like there's a whole thing that happens in the collective unconscious of people like bartering dreams and stuff. You know how like they say like, oh, don't tell people when you're manifesting something, keep it to yourself. It's that kind of concept, So connecting back that you are creator, and that you have that within you. And all of the programs that have told you to look outside of yourself for creations, that's what we're deprogramming. So remember that you are a creator. I also got something called the Temple of Time. Ooh, what's the Temple of Time? So one thing you'll learn if you kind of go on the Aligning with Earth website, I have some more resources on this in my Patreon. There are these things called the healing temples of the Aurora. And, there is support out there, like there are healing temples you can connect to in dream time. You can set your intention before you go to sleep and just get some support on your journey. A lot of times you'll notice you'll start setting your intention for something. You'll wake up in the morning with the answer, or you'll get a very elaborate dream that gives you the answer. So, we're taught to set our intentions in our waking hours, but let's set our intentions in our dream state as well. So the Temple of Time kind of supports you with aligning with like what does your ascension timeline look like? Like you might be on the false matrix timeline right now and doing what everybody in the false matrix tells you you're supposed to do. But what does your ascension timeline look like? Maybe there's certain friendships or relationships that you're ascending out of. So keeping, connecting with the healing temples of ascension. I also got the card of implant removal. So focusing in on clearing etheric implants. I have a free meditation on YouTube, or you can start on that. And then there's other ones if you want to do the Patreon, but there are free resources out there. Start educating yourself on etheric implants. And there are a lot of them. You're not going to get rid of them all in one go. It's going to take a long time for us to clear the layers. But as we clear each layer, we take our power back and we deprogram ourselves. Another thing that we need to transcend out of as genetic path cutters is something called crucifixion karma. You ever notice how like the world changers, a lot of the people who are here to do really like big things, they just get taken out at a certain age? You ever notice that? Kind of like how they did Jesus Christ, A lot of times this is because, there's been manipulations to our karmic records. And, if your karma is manipulated on the spiritual plane, bad things start happening to you. You never notice that there's certain people where it's just like, dang, something bad's always happened to them. Or like, they're always getting in a car accident. Why are they always getting in a car accident? Like that kind of stuff. A lot of times there's like crucifixion karma to be cleared. And this actually relates to implant removal. There are these things called crucifixion implants that you'll definitely want to prioritize clearing. And I have a free meditation on YouTube to help you with this, clearing out crucifixion implants. They're on your left side, and you'll find that they're in the same areas where they crucified Jesus Christ. It's interesting how we uplift this whole like crucifixion of Jesus Christ and even put him on a chain. It was a bloodletting ritual. Like, why would you do that to him? That was the lowest point of his life. Why are we taught to wear that on a chain? Where is this thought process coming from? A lot of this, a lot of the false matrix has been built upon a bartering system of sacrifice, of scarcity. Well, I'm going to take this from you and I'm going to give you my bad stuff. I'm going to take your good stuff. I'm going to give you my bad stuff. That's like a part of this crucifixion karma. So if you're a genetic path cutter, And if you have a lot of adverse childhood experiences in your life, you probably going to want to take care of this. Okay, just so you're able to, you know, have the most joyful experience. Otherwise, what you'll find is you'll start breaking out of the false matrix, and all these like curses, hexes, and spells starts getting activated in your life. You may have already experienced that, where it's like, dang, I started my ascension path and things were going so well, and then it just feels like everything kind of like blew up in my face, and like, what happened? A lot of times there's like false karma being projected on you. There's like crucifixion karma trauma that you need to kind of work through, deprogramming that you have to do, implants that you have to remove. It's like a part of this weird web and ecosystem. The next card is Breath of Life. Breath of Life. So there's this holographic language that's coming online with the Great Central Sun. It is called hold on, y'all. They're making me verify my... Okay. I don't know. That was weird. They were like, it's inactivity on the live. I don't know where I cut off. Sorry. There's this new holographic language coming online with the magnetism of the Great Central Sun. It is called the Language of Light. You will also find more about this on the Aligning with Earth website. What is a holographic language? It's a nonverbal language. It is a language that the earth is attuned to, the animals are attuned to, the plants are attuned to. So there are about, I think there's 144 tones in the language of light, and each one represents a certain thing that you will want to claim in your ascension process. Breath of Life is the color yellow, or actually gold. And, you know, that's actually why I have this gold frequency, or this gold background too. I'm really tapping into this golden frequency, which is a lot about creativity, reclaiming your creativity, reclaiming your creations. And let's think about it. The Anunnaki, and I'll do more on them soon because I have a lot to say about them. They came onto this planet to mine gold. They didn't have gold on their planet and they wanted gold. Creativity is the frequency of gold. Also, gold is the frequency of the divine feminine, interestingly enough. I know we're taught that silver is feminine and gold is masculine, but that's an inversion. It's actually the opposite. And if you think about it, if you think about the way the earth, which is a feminine, has been pillaged, and the way gold has been mined and pillaged, there's kind of a weird connection when you think about it. And it's a connection to love and creativity. Gold is a frequency. Okay, so connect with the frequency of gold, your breath of life. You also probably have a lot of people who consider themselves to be light workers and star seeds. They have issues with the throat, the diaphragm. You know, this is our creativity, our creations. That's because so many curses and spells and energy has been harvested from our creations. So you want to work on this area, okay, this whole area right here, breath of life. Work with the land. Okay, work with the land. So start bringing your prayers out into the land, taking out your walks. I'm definitely going to take me a walk after this. Yeah, start working with the land. That's another thing. Spleen. We don't really talk a lot about the spleen, especially in the Western civilization, but spleen, interestingly enough, is connected to crucifixion karma. The spleen is like, it's related to our blood, our chi, our energy source. Let's think about energy harvesting, and let's think about why it's connected to our blood, but we don't get educated on it. Seems like an important organ. Why aren't we learning about it? Chinese medicine has stuff on the spleen, but this is our life force. So if you're feeling tired, if you're feeling drained, a lot of times you got to work on your spleen health. And a lot of times there's actually one of the crucifixion implants is in the spleen. Interestingly enough, and it's on the left side. It's connecting. Okay, a few other cards. Polynesian. So a lot of y'all talked about Lemuria on this live. So Polynesians are connected to Lemurians. So this message is for somebody. And the Polynesians, like, connect to their holographic information. Start learning and studying their culture, okay? How they do things, how they view life. Because this is where we're moving back into this kind of vibration and this frequency, okay? The Pearl Ray. I'll do more content on this. Stay away from black and white stuff, all right? I know a lot of times we live in this polarity society that says white is good, black is bad, but we actually want to get into more of the rainbow tones. When we think about the pearl has this opalescence where there's all these colors in the pearl. Yeah, the pearl's white, but if you look at it from another direction, it has all these other colors. And so, you know, focusing in on clearing your energy, not through white light. A lot of that is electrical. You know, that's something I had to learn too. You know, start like imagining more of an opalescent, holographic, pearlescent light, you know, and flooding your energy with that and connecting with the rainbow as well. Aboriginal. So that's another thing that came up, you know, connecting with, if you have Aboriginal ancestry, or connecting with how do they view life? You know, once again, we're going back to this time frame. This is like that Lemurian type mentality. We want to start collecting holographic records and ancestry from there. I also got Australia, so it was coming through really big that people on this live have some ancestry in these areas. It's very similar, like Lemuria, like that time period, Polynesian, Australia, Aboriginal. Temple of Ascension, that's another healing temple in the Aurora, which is just to support you. Like, where are you in your ascension right now? You know, there's a lot of stuff we got to work on. This is a long, multi-year process. So, you know, connecting with the Temple of Ascension to start getting some more information. Language of light, tone of unity. Unity is a light pink tone, and it's just about, you know, connecting with unity consciousness. And then the last is I got thought forms, superior, inferior. This is one of those polarity thought forms that we're going to need to transcend as we integrate magnetic frequency. We have to get out of polarity, this or that, black or white. Superior, inferior, where are you finding yourself to be superior, better than people, and integrate that? And where are you finding yourself to be inferior, less than, and integrate that? You know, come to the middle path. And take, give. You know, a lot of this false matrix society has been based upon harvesting energy, just taking more than they, you know, taking more than is necessary, giving more than what is necessary, this weird codependency thing. So that's another thing we're going to have to integrate through polarity integration, okay? And so that's just getting out of the black and white consciousness. That's not, there's no colors in the Aurora that are black and white. You know, we're moving into the spectrum of light, and we're leaving polarity behind. So let me catch up on these comments real quick. But yeah, that's a part of the deck. I have like over 200 cards of and it just gets you, you know, if you have a question, you just get right to it. And then you can it helps you to like learn very specific things you need to heal in your ancestry. Let's see. Ooh, we got a lot of comments. Okay. Yes, Coquette Honey says, yes, I guess I'll have to find my own tribe and lineage in the Akashic Records myself, just hard. Yeah, but there are resources, you know, start looking for guided meditations that have that. How do you tap into your Akashic Records? I have a whole thing. My Patreon has a whole thing on, there's tons of meditations to support you with that. I also have like a TikTok on my that's pinned on my page to support you too. Yeah, the index card idea. We don't need all that extra stuff. Like, just getting back to the basics. We just need to get back to the basics. Oh, thank you for the heart. Okay, what about archangels for protection? That's a great question. And as a matter of fact, the Akashic Records video I actually had mentioned an archangel on there. Thank you for the rose. I have changed my perception. I consider all of that like false gods. I've learned so much, and you'll just have to go and do your own journey and use your own discernment. But what I have found is the ancestry I'm trying to tap back into, that I have connected with, like, I am in a much more, like, my lineage is in a much more fallen state. And, you know, I'm reclaiming ancestral gifts, collapsing timelines, clearing trauma and stuff, and connecting more and more to my real ancestors. Because that's another thing that you have to navigate as a genetic path cutter. This sounds so messy and almost unbelievable, but you know, swapped ancestries. Sometimes people will try to swap ancestries with you so they don't have to deal with the karma of their ancestry. it's a mess. So you got to make sure, that's another thing. Make sure you're atoning for the karma that is actually yours, because what you'll do is you'll keep trying to let go of some real bad karmic event, but it's not yours. So it'll never go away because it's not yours to process. So you just got to send it back. So that's another thing. But all that to say, this is a very, like, your ascension process requires a lot of your energy and your chi. You need all of that. So any sort of, veneration, there's always a cost. When you call on an archangel, there's a cost. You give them your energy. Sometimes you give them records. Like, how do you think the fall in consciousness happened over time? Humans used to be able to levitate and do all this stuff. We have all these these clues that we had a lot more capacities. How did our consciousness fall, and where did the information go? And so I have just found that, I think the archangels are a middle person. I don't really need them. Like, if I connect with my I am presence, earth, and my ancestors, I'm good. I don't need all that extra stuff. And also I've been reclaiming my energy back from a lot of these beings. That's just me. But use your discernment. Is there a mother goddess creator? I would say that's a mixture of the earth, and also you are creator goddess too. Like connecting to the God goddess within you. And that's not saying you're better than anyone. Everybody has this. You just got to connect back to your God goddess frequency. That's it, You should make a deck of cards with all that and a book explaining. I'd buy it. I've been thinking about it. I don't know. I'm going through my own process right now, but, and it would be so simple. I wouldn't really put any kind of I really wouldn't put too much art on it and stuff. And I'm very artistic, but I don't know. I'm still kind of working on that, just because I've been duped so many times by a lot of these decks. I want to make sure I do it in a way that is resonant with my spirit. Thank you, Human Rights Sovereign. Okay. In your opinion, Jesus the Christ consciousness manifested in earthly realm? I think, yeah, Jesus was somebody who was tapped into his God consciousness and was trying to get other people to tap into his, and he got taken out, and there's a lot of Jesus type figures, that we can point to in our society that we're trying to show people another way as being possible, and they got taken out. And this is why we need to start working from within in the Akashic records and through karma to increase our capacity to thrive, because they're still trying to use the old tricks. They're just not going to work as well because we're in the age of exposure and everything is coming to light. You should tape these live. So I'm going to put this on YouTube. Yeah. I need help. I'm a fallen angel or no. We're all fallen angels. We've all, I like to say the bigger the light, the bigger the shadow. So if you're a light worker, you're a shadow worker, and you got to collapse that shadow. That's a whole other explanation, but there's a lot of our disowned shadow aspects which are being used by beings who do not want us to ascend. And so we got to take all that back because, if we think about some of the biggest gurus in our time right now, yeah, they're such light workers in this realm, but what about in other realms? How do they become so powerful? These are just questions you have to ask. Okay, Diane Prince 381 says, I stopped wearing earrings years ago. For some reason, just started wearing my gold earrings again. Yeah, divine feminine. It's a frequency. Tap into that golden frequency. I am presence, yes, is the higher self. Channeling with entities outside of yourself in higher dimension is a risk and can ruin your temple. Yes. Yes, just recall all of your energy. Call all of your energy back. What questions, practices can be used to tell when you are on the right or wrong path? You can get to it in dreams. I use the deck, the deck I have, that's been really helping me. It's just real clear too. It's like, girl, take care of this, also ask for things to be revealed to you in your dreams. So a lot of my dreams, I've been using them as instruction manuals. It'll show me, okay, this is where your energy is being harvested. This is where it's, and if you're dreaming of somebody, it's not a coincidence. And then usually I'll have the dream, and then I'll pull the cards, and then I'll get the information I need, and it'll help me and it like take out all of the, being mad about it, just like they're there to show you a karmic lesson that you're here to transcend. Because you'll get mad. You'll be like, really? That's what you were in my life for? To harvest my energy, or to take my genetic information, or to swap ancestries with me? It gets wild. But go into non-duality, polarity integration, because you've done a lot of dirt yourself in the unconscious, and, just reclaim your power. And so like, ask if before you go to bed, if there's a question that you have that you need clarity on, ask, and then you'll probably have a dream about it. And then do investigation that way. But yeah, you're always being guided in one way or another, to see where, you can go next. This is not a journey of perfection. But yeah. Okay. So Mana says, I traveled to Australia and Hawaii, and it helped greatly in my ascension process. This is all really resonating. Thank you. Yes. The ancestors are probably coming real through with you. Yeah, and I'm going to end it there, y'all. I'm going to end it there. I don't know. I feel like I've been talking a really long time. I usually do like an hour. I feel like this was over an hour. I don't know. I don't know what time it is. Or I know what time it is. I don't know what time I started. But thank you. I'm going to post this on YouTube within the next day, so you can watch the replay there. Sending you so much love, joy, peace, prosperity, and abundance until we meet again. And check out the Patreon, and check out my links if you want to connect on a deeper level, in a way that's sovereign. And I'm never going to try to tell you what you should do. You are the key at the end of the day. All right. Peace. Bye.